Now the second test. So to save time, I'm going to select all this code, duplicate it. Now let's assume the user or the client is logged in, but is sending an invalid genre. So this time we should return 400, which means bad request, if genre is invalid. But what makes genre invalid? Well, we want to make sure that it's at least 5 characters. So I would rather to be more specific here. So if genre is less than 5 characters. So to implement this test, first we need to log in. So we need to generate an authentication token, and then we're going to include that token in this request, in the header. So on the top, first we need to import our user model, because earlier we added a method to this class to generate an authentication token. So I'm just going to copy this line. We're going to import the user class from the user module. Okay, now back in the test. So before sending the request, we're going to create a token. So we create a new user object and call generate auth token. And then here we call the set method to set a header. So the name of the header is x-auth-token. This is the key that our authorization middleware looks for. So we pass the token here. Now let's change the name of this genre to 1234, so we know it's less than 5 characters. And we expect the status to be 400. Save, back in the terminal. All right, we have a failing test. So we expected 400, but we got 500, which means internal server error. So something's fundamentally wrong here. Let's scroll up. So here's the error that is coming from Winston, logged on the console. Genre validation failed. Name path is shorter than the minimum allowed length. Now this error is coming from Mongoose, as you can tell from the stack trace here. But in this case, we expected Joy, our validation library, to kick in and validate the request. So we shouldn't really hit the validation logic in Mongoose models. So let's go to genre.js. This is our genre schema. You can see minimum length is 5 characters. And here's our Joy validate function. Note that here I set the minimum to 3 characters. So this is another benefit of writing tests. You catch these kind of errors before deploying your application to production. So let's change this to 5. Now save, back in the terminal, all tests are passing. Beautiful. Now by the same token, we should not be able to send a genre that is more than 50 characters. So let's write another test for that. I'm going to get this code and duplicate it. Again, we should return 400 if genre is more than 50 characters. Now we need to change the name to a long string. We can hard code a long string here, but that's ugly. So let me show you how to dynamically generate a long string. So here in the terminal window, let's just run node. Now here we can execute JavaScript code. So I'm going to new up an array of 5 elements and then join these elements using a. See what we get? We get 4 A's. Because we have 5 elements in this array, so we'll put a in between each element, and that's why we get 4 A's. So the length of the string we have here equals the number of elements in the array minus 1. In other words, if we want a string that is, let's say, 51 characters, we should have an array of 52 elements because our separator will be in between these elements. So back in the code, here we can generate a name, new array of 52 characters, and then we join these elements using a. Now we replace name with this name. Save. All right, we have another failing test. Again, we expected 400, but we got 500. So if you scroll up, you can see Again, this error is coming from Mongoose. Genre validation failed. Exactly the same issue we had earlier. So we didn't implement our joy validation function properly. So let's go back to the genre module. Here's our validation function. We added minimum characters, but we forgot maximum characters. So maximum 50. Save. Back in the terminal, all tests are passing. Beautiful.